Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the WholeMan Podcast, an exploration into remembering wholeness using the superpowers of courageous curiosity and radical vulnerability. My name is Cowell, and I commit to showing up as present, authentic, courageous, curious, and open. If you're not feeling that, I love you, and I'll see you on the other side. If you are, welcome to my flame. Oh, of course. Right when I press record. All right. I get a phone call right then.
Not me. That's why.
I can edit it out.
Yeah, no
That's
worries.
something I'm learning to do, so this will be good.
Yeah,
Good practice.
It's so much easier to do that than to think everything has to be perfect, for sure.
Totally. Awesome. All right. Take two. Welcome to episode 16 of the WholeMan Podcast. I am. In this moment, I am nervous. I am excited. I am slowing down to feel what is present. I am grateful to have the privilege to be with the great and powerful Alexis Doss. Alexis is an identity reinvention coach who helps high achievers reinvent themselves when life, career, or relationships shift. With close to 14 years of coaching experience, she blends tough love, nervous system work, and identity level mindset shifts to help people break free from old patterns, gain clarity, and step into their next chapter with confidence. Known for her authentic, no BS approach, Alexis is passionate about helping people rewrite who they are and create a life that actually feels aligned. Alexis, welcome to the WholeMan Podcast.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to be here. I love that you're getting present and slowing down. I think we as human beings, in the world that we live in with like social media and everything is go, go, go. And you push a button and a car comes to your house. You push a button and you get food delivered. We want everything to be quick and fast and move. And so we're not used to like slowing down. And it's kind of funny what happens when you start to slow down. All the things that you're chasing so hard and so fast to come by comes by a lot faster.
Dude, I could not agree more. It is crazy to feel like, even as I slow down there at the beginning, it still feels awkward, and it
Of course it does.
feels, it's weird and it's strange. And I'm worried, like, what is Alexis going to think? Is she going to think I'm weird because I'm like breathing and saying I am?
No.
And yet it's such a pleasure to be in the presence of people who get it and appreciate it and celebrate it. So
Hell
I'm
yeah.
really grateful for that.
Yeah. I think that kind of stuff is the stuff that we need more often. And it feels uncomfortable because our nervous system is used to the opposite of that. And so like I'm all for it. But if anybody ever feels uncomfortable, it's usually, if you feel uncomfortable about anything, it's always a sign for you to be like, okay, everything's a mirror. What is that saying about myself? Why am I not comfortable with slowness?
Yes, absolutely.
You get it.
Before we get started, I asked Alexis to lead us in a grounding or connecting exercise, and she has agreed. So Alexis, over to you.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So this will be simple. I recommend this with like there's so many different ways to like regulate your nervous system, ground, and there's like kind of grounding your energy, and then there's like expelling energy. I kind of am a bit more of, I call it like chillers versus movers. Chillers are the people who like to slow down and meditate and breathe and orient and look at the things around them. And movers are the ones that kind of need to like scream into a pillow or like dance or shake out their body. And this one is kind of a combination of both, in my opinion. Maybe a little bit more of a mover, but so obviously if you're driving or something where you need to be safe, don't do this. But I'm very much, I want to tell you what we're gonna do, and then we're gonna do it. That way you know when I'm not moving too fast. But it's just called a body tense. You may have heard it before. Obviously you and I are sitting up, so we can kind of just do it kind of where we're sitting. But if you can lay down, that would be, super sick if you're listening to this and are able to do that. But essentially what we're gonna do, the goal is to tense every single muscle in your body, from your face to your butt to your toes to everything. If you're laying down, you can really like fully get into a ball, or you can just like put your hands by your side, like almost like you're like throwing a tantrum, and like get really, really tight. But the hands in a fist, muscles tightened. And if it's easiest, what I find helpful to do is to start from the head down or from the toes up, whatever feels better. Grounding, probably want to start from the head and go down, but I'm not one of those people that's like, you have to do this the exact way. It's like whatever your body says is the best way. And then just like get really tight, and I'll cue you. So I'll just keep saying like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. You're going to start to feel a little bit uncomfortable and be like, okay, when is she going to say that we're done this? And then you're going to release, and we're just going to do that 3 times. Is that good instruction? Do you feel like you're clear? Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Yep. Sounds
Um,
awesome.
okay, awesome. And it also is because I'm gonna be squeezing too. It's kind of hard to get the words out, so I'm gonna be like squeeze, but we're gonna do it. So, and we're gonna hold for maybe like 8 to 10 seconds. If you want to do this on your own, if you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you're anxious, if you're literally anything, you can use this. So, okay, so we'll start now. So just squeeze, get into a ball, squeeze everything, squeeze. Okay, and release. And you can keep your eyes open. You can keep them closed, whatever feels good. And we're going to squeeze again. Squeeze, squeeze everything, everything. Maybe in your face. And release. And then we're going to do it one more time. And the hardest you can. Squeeze everything. Okay. And just take one deep breath in. And one more. Heck yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit, that was cool.
Yeah. It's like the simplest thing. And being somebody who's like had anger problem, I don't really have them anymore. I mean, I can get there, of course, but like, so that you got to really get me to a high level to do that. But like, grew up with really, really bad anger problems. And like always wanted to like punch things and throw things, never hurt anybody, just wanted to hit other things. And so I feel like that is almost like what my inner child wants a lot, because she's still, we're still navigating some things, but yeah, the body is so much more powerful than the mind. And obviously your mind is powerful in itself, but I always tell people, like, I work with a lot of emotionally intelligent people, and they are always, because speaking from experience, we are always trying to like think our way out of a situation instead of get into our body. And like I have OCD. Well, I'm trying not to trying to say that less, that I have OCD. I like to more tell it as like it's a part of my story, not who I am. I do a lot of Joe Dispenza stuff, and he's always like, is that your affirmation? Oh, I have OCD. And so it's more of just a thing that I've experienced. And so I can love to try to think my way. If I think about this for another hour, then it'll get solved, And instead of just like, you know what, actually, let me take 5 minutes, or even
Mm,
what was that, like not even 90 seconds to get
yeah.
into my body, like 80%, if not more, of what is driving you insane, you'll either have an answer or you'll just care less. So get into your body more.
Uh, I I love that. I feel that. I feel it right now. Before that exercise, I felt my body like I was nervous. I'm starting out doing this and I'm nervous. And having done that, I feel way more at peace. And gosh, I mean, it's crazy how simple this stuff is. Like, take a couple breaths, squeeze your butt. Like, it's
Yeah.
the easiest stuff. And yet I deeply relate to what you're saying about wanting to be in my head all the time, like wanting to think through. I over intellectualize everything.
Yeah.
And to hear you say that the body is more powerful than the mind, I'm like I have a resistance to that immediately. I'm like, wait, hold on.
I'm
Like,
smarter than
what? My
that.
mind is pretty smart.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I just experienced the power of the body just now,
Yeah.
and it's freaking awesome. So
Yeah. Hell yeah.
thank you for leading that. I've done similar things, but not that exact thing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, if you can lay down and do it and, like, you can, again, get into a ball or just, like, really tight, straight line type of thing, it's awesome, and the longer you hold it, the
Uh,
better you'll feel, you know? Don't make your head pop off, but I would say you could probably hold it for at least 15 or 20 seconds for sure.
I love it.
Hell yeah.
I think I've got 3 kids, and like I honestly feel like I've failed at giving them tools for how to regulate their emotions. Like, I never knew how to do it myself, and so I'm learning. It's part of why I'm on this journey. But this one is one that I'll probably take it to my kids tonight and just be like, "Hey, let's all try this."
Yeah, such a fun one to try with kids too, because they like I always said like I'm not sure if I want kids, but I always say like if I had kids now, if I had kids 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been this smart, but I do this work now. So I'm more aware of them. But like, you know, instead of timeout, it's like something like that. Like you're gonna get
Yes.
a tantrum, you're gonna get all these things that are bubbling up because kids are they're little big feelings and little bodies. Like they act out in certain ways, not because they're just trying to be, you know, an a-hole. It's just like, you know, they have a lot of feelings in a little body. And so something like that is a really great tool, especially for like, I mean, anybody, but for little ones, you can make, you know, have some fun with it, but also teach them like what it's doing and then it's grounding them. And kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for. And so like you teaching them those things and regardless of whether you knew it when they were younger or whatever age, like the fact that you're doing this now and you're trying to learn and you're trying to educate yourself, like that says way more than whatever you did yesterday. So
I love it. Yeah, and the fact is they're going to get an exercise like this 30 years before I did in my life.
yeah, right.
So, it's still improvement.
Hell yeah.
Oh, can you just start off by giving us a little taste of who you are, where you came from, what makes you tick, what are you passionate about, and yeah, what makes Alexis Doss?
I love that. So, I mean, we chatted a little bit before, and I feel like I tell the same story a lot. So occasionally, I'm like, I'm gonna throw a curveball that way in case people listen to more than one podcast that I'm on. They're like, I've already heard this story. Um, so I call myself well self-proclaimed tough love coach. But I my niche and the people that I really like to help now, even though it's kind of what I've always been doing, and I feel like being in business for 14 years and coaching people in so many different ways from like I started as like a vegan recipe blog page and now I like could eat so much meat. My head could fall off. And so like I would love to be vegan but my body just doesn't like it. But like from that to fitness and nutrition, then I did network marketing, then I did business coaching, then I did ADHD coaching and all of these things that like I've learned and attained over my life, but I feel like it's all brought me to where I am now, which is like identity reinvention, which is like helping people who are going through those big life shifts that like when you're going through them, it can feel so lonely and it can feel like this messy middle of I'm not quite my old self, but I don't really know who that new person is. People who are, you know, either going through divorce or have been through divorce, career change, like you worked at, you know, corporate and you want to open a bakery now and you're like, I don't even know what my life is without a corporate life, you know? And so all of these things that I love to help people with, if you're moving, you know, city, states, I've moved all over the country, but like I'll talk to people and tell them all the places that I've been. And I haven't lived at home since I was 17. Like periodically, there might have been a few months, but I've lived all over. And some people have, you know, really never left their hometown or their home state. And so all of these things that I help people with are because that's what I've been through, you know? And so from like thinking I was gonna be a high school history teacher to thinking I was gonna meet the love of my life and become a model living in LA to ended up being homeless. And then like just figuring everything out, being in, you know, not marrying my high school sweetheart, but meeting a guy that I was just friends with, and we ended up getting married and we're together for almost 10 years and then got a divorce after 18 months. Like I left a six-figure business to pursue my own thing, and I have lived like Seattle, LA, Miami, Philly, New York, like all of the places. And so I've started and restarted and burned it all down and did it again and will continue to do that for the rest of my life. I truly don't think it's something that I will stop doing. I'll just get better at like seeing certain things but no matter what I do, I want to not be the smartest person in the room. I want to fail. I want to learn from the mistakes that I make, and I always say this all the time, like, and this isn't throwing shade, maybe it'll sound a little bit like it, but this isn't throwing shade at anybody who feels right now that they're not successful in what they wanna do, but if you look at unsuccessful people versus successful people, obviously, I know that's subjective, but, like, if people who some people look up to, like, if you look at, like, a Billie Eilish or, like, you know, anybody who's on Shark Tank, like, those people who, like, are super successful or even somebody that you just look up to on your own, I think that we look at those people and we think that they like have had it all figured out, but it's back to the quote of like the master has failed more times than the student has ever even tried. And so it's
Mm,
so funny to me because the people who like are like, man, I'm really not where I want to be. They're so desperately trying to avoid failure that
mm,
if they would lean into it like the people that they look up to, they would be so much more successful. Now, obviously, that's a little bit easier said than done. And that's where I come in to help people with the being okay with failure, with being okay with like not knowing, you know, who you are. Like when I got a divorce, I had been with my partner and we'd been together for 9 years, but I had known him for close to 20 years since I was like 14. I
mm,
didn't even know who I was without this person. Like they were a part of my identity. And when you have to reinvent yourself, that can feel like failure, but it's like such an incredible, exciting opportunity to be like, I get to create a whole new person. If you get to move
mm,
to a new state, you get to be a whole new person. You get to start a new job. You get to be a whole new person. It is so much just about perspective of like, I can look, and this is like what I think I'm good at helping people do. I truly feel like I was just put on this earth to do what I do, and I feel very grateful that I found that at 23. And then that can, of course, change over time, but I think I'll always be coaching people. But it's just like the ability to just shift your perspective and the way you look at something. It's like, you know, oh, I have to get a divorce, like my life is over, or oh my God, I get to get a divorce, like my life is over and I get to start a new one, you know? So I
yes.
could go on and on, but those are like the things that I feel like kind of make me who I am and what I'm like passionate about for sure.
Uh, I love it. That's beautiful. There's so much and tell me if this is your experience of it, but what I hear is there's so much courage in the way you live your life. And does it feel like courage? Like, are you scared in those moments of transition, or are you just like, does it just come more naturally to you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think my first reaction is like, and my partner would be like, "No, you need to say that you are courageous." But like, I have just always, for as far back as I can remember, been someone that was kind of like okay with taking chances. My childhood wasn't always like the greatest. It wasn't terrible, but I definitely went through some childhood trauma, but my mom always instilled in me, like, being okay with failure. Like, you're gonna mess up and you have to figure it out, and so I just remember that at a really young age. Like, I remember she had, like, a Google document, and at the time, it was, like, printed out like MapQuest directions, but, it was, like, quotes that she would collect from whatever, and she would, like, put them on this sheet, and, like, I really used that. I played volleyball for 13 years, and I was always, like, captain of the team and rookie of the year and MVP like my senior year, like all these things that I feel like were because I failed and pushed myself. Like my freshman year of college or my freshman year of high school, I was so bad at volleyball that they like in like the JV games, they would always make sure towards the end of the game that they would like at least let everybody play a few times. And I was so bad that, like, that I didn't play in one of the games, and the coach came up to me the next day and was like, "Oh my god, I forgot to put you in." And the next year, I came back and, like, made the varsity team and was, like, one of the best players on the team. Like, I know that's, like, high school, like, I'm not, like, saying, like, "Oh, those were the times," and I've peaked because I totally haven't, but I'm saying it as in, like, it's just the courage and that has always been instilled in me at a very young age. So when you have that as a foundation, I feel like everything that I have gone through since then, homelessness, like divorce, career change, like all these things, health scares, like all of it, has just built up that courage. Like I always say, like action breeds confidence, not the other way around. And so I feel like I've just taken a lot of action. And
Mm.
to get a little woo woo, because I feel like I always want to share this, whether people are like into astrology or anything like that. There's something called human design. Some people know what it is, some people don't.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so in human design, I am a manifester, which is only like 9% of the population, but I'm an ego manifester, and the ego authority is only like 2% of the population. And again, I don't share that to like be like, "Oh, I'm super cool," but ego authorities is such a small part of the population, but we have a lot of willpower and no fear. So I feel like there's
Mm.
also that I was kind of like born with it, but that's why I
Nice.
think I do what I do because like in the same way that if I looked to somebody that was really good at like learning how to play an instrument and I've tried before and I get really frustrated, like and they were just like, "No, you just like figure it out," like because they did it, that's just what they're good at, right? And so
Yeah.
even though this is something I feel like nature and nurture for me with like being courageous, but now I can use the way my brain naturally works and then also what I've learned to help people get past
Mm.
those humps as well, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love it. I love Yeah, I love both pieces, the nature and the nurture, and that's cool. That's cool that your mom instilled that in you at a young age, and yeah, and that you now get to pass that on. It's almost like you're helping mother other people who didn't get that from their
Yeah,
moms or their dads, or
yeah, sure.
that's really freaking cool. And also to hear that you found your calling at such a young age is just that is fucking badass.
Yeah,
I think so many of us we like it feels like society. I feel like I'm going through this in my life, just recognizing I chose acceptability over authenticity from a very young age, and I lost myself in the process, and now I'm in a process of remembering, like, actually
sure.
putting back the members of my body, and to hear that you know, somehow you kinda averted that and is just that's just badass. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think something that I actually just had a guest on my podcast, and we were talking about this, but, and we're talking about I'm going on a trip to do ayahuasca for the first time in Colombia for a 10-day retreat in the Amazon in Colombia, and I'm just super excited about it, and he was talking about how, like and you can apply this, we were talking about ayahuasca, but he was talking about this, like, with, just growth in general is that it's not about finding out who you are and, like adding layers, it's about
Yeah.
removing the layers to find out
Yes.
what's underneath, and so I think that that sounds like kind of what you're doing, and I was that same way too, like, I was bullied basically from 2nd grade all the way until, like, sophomore year of high school, not only by like, so bad that they had to pull me out of a school to put me in another one because the bullying was
Mm,
just so bad, but also by my family. Like, my parents were separated, so I went to my dad's side, like, my cousins just, like, always like, I was, like, the kid that was going to, like, private Catholic school, and so they, use every opportunity to, like, make fun of me, and so I definitely did a lot of that, like, being neurodivergent and, like, masking a lot, and like you said, the way you said it is perfect, that, like, acceptability and, like, making sure that and I don't think I was ever necessarily, like, strictly a people pleaser, because I don't consider myself that, but it was more of just, like, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be validated,
mm,
wanting to know that, like, I what wha who I was something that, like, could be accepted by other people, you know what I mean? So I
mm.
get that on a deep level for sure.
So what I hear you saying is, although you wanted to be accepted, I mean, that feels like just even a biological mandate. We all want to be accepted because it's like, I'm not gonna survive if I'm not accepted, especially at those younger ages. But whereas for me, what I did was I just conformed. It sounds like you didn't conform as much, even though you had the desire, you still lived more in authenticity to who you really were. Is that accurate?
I would say there was elements of it. I think I learned more about, like, wanting to be my authentic self a lot sooner in life, but definitely, like, in grade school and maybe even in high school, I was, like, still trying to fit in because I got bullied, and once I started to, like, go through puberty and, like, be treated like a human being, I was like, "Okay, well, I still want this." But I feel like I learned really quickly, like, okay, I'm putting on a mask, like, I wanna make sure that I'm not attracting, like, the wrong people. Because it
Mm,
wasn't once I got into college, I think I kind of went through, like, a depressive period. I don't really remember why exactly, but I think I was, like, trying to find my own self, and
mm,
when you realize you've been putting on a mask your whole life, then you're like, again, it goes back to this identity. You're like, Who am I without this mask? Who am I?" I work with a lot of people pleasers, and
mm,
it's like, who are you when you're not worrying about pleasing people? Like, what are you afraid's going to happen if you don't people please? And if you can answer that question, then that's what we tackle, you know?
mm. I love it. Yeah. Who was I when I wasn't pleasing people? I was no one. I was nothing. Like it was never a thing. Like I was so completely enveloped in for me, and it sounds like you had somewhat of religion in your background, but for me, the I took religion so seriously. You know, it was taught to me at a young age, and the way I took it was the most true thing about me is I'm a piece of shit who deserves to go to hell, and if I don't say this prayer and do this, then I'm fucked.
Yeah.
And for a little mind like mine, like that just painted everything for me, you know, and it just it converted into every area of my life. And I haven't traced all of the lines. That's part of my work, but yeah, I really feel like I had no idea who I was.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. It's and I think religion can, like, do that to people. Like, I wouldn't consider myself religious at all now, but definitely was religious growing up. But I feel like I learned really quickly, like, okay, I don't like that there's these rules of, like, telling me that I'm a good person or I'm a bad person depending on, like, what I do. But I think that even that, like, I wouldn't say I help people with, like, their religious identity reinvention just because
Yeah.
I'm not super. I mean, I could help with it in terms of my skills as a coach, but wouldn't, like, go hardcore into that because I don't necessarily know that world that
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I hear you.
But I think that any identity that we've held on to, like, an identity can be anything from, like, the identity you have because you've been friends with or dating someone, or, like, I deal with a lot of people who, like, live and breathe in they're so enmeshed with their parents or their family members that, like, the idea of, like, cutting a family member off is like, "What do you mean I would never do that?" when that family member's just absolutely disrespecting them, you know? And so
Mm,
I think for people, like, figuring out who you are if you no longer care what your mom thinks. Not and
mm,
you know, depending on the relationship, but, like, because you can still love a parent, you can still care about someone, but you can have boundaries, and I think a lot of people, like, are, again, just so enmeshed with certain identities and relationships and people that some people don't even know that they have those identities until
totally.
they listen to something like this or they follow my content and they're like, "Oh, I guess I do have an identity, like, I've identified as a perfectionist." Like, the whole thing, because again, I've been doing this for so long, but when I got the idea to kind of shift my niche into a little bit more of this area, like, I'd always been doing it, but kind of really focusing on this identity reinvention, was this, metaphor I always use, I guess more of a story, but I, had an eating disorder for, like, 2 years, and when I finally was ready to, like, no longer have that eating disorder, I found myself still going back into old patterns and old habits, and I was like, "Well, I'm ready," you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have this anymore. It's like, you know, being addicted to, like, cigarettes, whatever, and I don't want this, but I was like, "Why am I still,
Mm,
like, here?" And I realized it was because I had identified with being somebody with an eating disorder for so long that
mm,
from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, it's all I thought about. What food was going in my body, what my body looked like, how, you know, how my clothes were fitting, like all of it all the time. My brain was like constantly like that.
mm,
And so if you
yeah.
were to tell me that I was going to wake up tomorrow and no longer have an eating disorder, in theory, it's like, yeah, that's great. But in reality, our nervous system and our inner child and everything internally goes, that's so unfamiliar. What do you mean? What are we gonna think about? It's literally like removing a hole from your existence. And so a
Mm,
lot of people will hold on to identifying with being the victim, being the person who's always broke. Because if you think about money all of the time, and you don't wanna be broke anymore, your nervous system and your inner child will keep doing things. Like, if you wanna start budgeting, when you go to start budgeting, your nervous system will make you feel tired. It'll make you feel
mm,
overwhelmed,
yeah,
and then you'll just
totally.
procrastinate. And it's because it sees what you're trying to do. And this is, like, based in nervous system regulation, but also in quantum physics. If you read anything Joe Dispenza, like, there's so much of this. But, like, if you want to step into a new reality and it feels unfamiliar, you're going to desperately hold on to that. It's even like people who are like, and I'm not saying like if you're overweight that that's a bad thing, like, you know, but people will, and I'm not saying this myself, but I've talked to people who are like, they've identified as the fat friend their whole life. Like, oh, I'm not fat, or I'm fat, so I have to be really funny. And so they won't
Mm,
lose weight because they're like, well, what is my identity if I'm no longer the fat friend? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
there's so many identities that we hold on to and we keep ourselves stuck in that place and we self-sabotage and we're wondering, why can't I change? And it's because you're trying to change into doing life a different way from the old identity. You have to be willing to let go of that old identity. And that's why I call myself like a rebirth doula. Like, I'm like helping
Mm,
rebirth people into this new identity because your nervous system and your inner child is going to be like, absolutely not. We are
yeah,
not doing this.
totally,
Stepping into a new identity is so unfamiliar and uncomfortable, you know?
totally. Yeah, it's painful. I've my wife and I have been talking about that recently. It's painful to go through that process. My The other question I had for you are kind of around that. In your experience, why do people wake up? Why do people choose to like say, "Hey, I'm done being the fat friend," or "I'm done being the people pleaser"? What chemistry is happening there to actually make, because it is so painful, so it's so painful to go through that, which keeps us from starting the process. What leads people to actually start that painful process?
Yeah, that is something that I feel like I could give you a million different answers to, but if I could kind of categorize them in a few different ways, then, I think that might be best, but The first one is gonna be that they just hit that rock bottom or that breaking point where because if you have been trying to go to the gym and you've or dieted or whatever, and you have start and stopped that like your entire life. Like I've talked to people when I used to work in like nutrition and fitness who said they've been dieting for like 30 years. And if you have been doing that for so long, some people will never wake up. And, that just is what it is. And if they decide to do that, that's fine. I always say if you are happy with where your life is and you're not complaining, then you've won. But you can't say you're unhappy with your life and you're complaining, but then not doing anything. I mean, I guess you can, but then you're kind of pain in the ass if you're just wanting somebody to listen to you. Then you're just identifying with the victim mindset. But I think people just kind of get to a breaking point where they run into that same wall, that same problem. Or it's like if you have been somebody who's treated women like shit, and then all of a sudden you meet someone that like you are like, oh my God, this is the person that's going to change me. And then they leave you. Sometimes
Mm,
for, like, men that I've worked with, like, that was, like, the catalyst for them. It's usually,
mm,
like, some kind of rock bottom moment or a moment where they can't take it anymore. Now,
mm,
not everybody waits to get to a rock bottom moment, and rock bottom's gonna look different for everybody, but I would say that's probably, a number 1 of just, like, "I can't do this anymore," because we say that all the time, but there's a moment where you say, "I can't do this anymore," and then you really can't do it anymore, and then you change. And then it's still hard, but you know what it feels like to be that old version, even if that old version was a week ago, you just continue to not want to be there. Then I think the second thing is just like almost like a kind of inspiration or seeing somebody who like if you wanted to start a podcast but you were like I don't know what I'm doing, and then you see somebody post that they like had no idea what they were doing but they started a podcast and now they have like the top 10 podcasts, whatever. Like sometimes for people that can be like some people can look at that and be like oh my God I'm such a failure, or look at it and be like if they can do it I can do it too. And so
mm,
it's always just seems to be some kind of catalyst, whether it's like a positive thing or a negative thing, something that kind of tips them over the edge of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I truly think that, and this is why even if someone doesn't work with me, just following my content or content from other people that do similar identity reinvention work is like sometimes just seeing somebody talk about identity reinvention. Like there are going to be some people that, could listen to this and be like, I've never really heard anybody talk about like changing yourself in this way. And another thing I talk about is my goal is always to I my brain works best through like metaphors. And so if I can help people with that, I feel like it really helps, or just like examples where it really clicks. And so I
heck
think
yeah.
when you can hear somebody explain something in a certain way, then you're like, oh, that is probably why I have been stuck. So
Mm,
let me work on that. And I think with identity reinvention, another thing that I navigate with my clients is not just like what identity have you been holding on to, but even deeper that I think a lot of people don't talk about is what has that identity been giving you? So if
mm,
you've been broke your whole life and you're like, oh my God, like money has just always been hard for me. Maybe I'm just destined to be broke all the time. There has been something that being broke has been giving you. If you're
mm,
always broke, you always have something to complain about, so people have sympathy for you. And even if
mm,
you're like, "Well, I don't wanna be broke," you get that like, "Oh, no worry, I got you." Or like, "Oh my God, that must be so hard to, like, be struggling with money." Like, you get sympathy. If you
yeah,
no longer struggle with money, guess what? You now have more responsibility. When you're broke, you have less responsibility, most likely because you just
yeah.
can't handle more. And so there's something that you've been getting
Love
uh,
it.
through whatever identity you've been holding on to, and that's the reason why, like, if you for a lot of people, even with being broke, I'll put all of this next what identity gives you into this category: being broke, dating really toxic people, being at a job that is like maybe you're constantly like changing jobs, like whatever it is where there's a lot of uncertainty because of your childhood. You may have just been addicted to chaos. And so like if you grew
Mm,
up in a really chaotic household, your nervous system knows chaos. And so
mm,
if you have known that being broke, dating toxic men, all going to be what keeps you in chaos. If you date very nice, chill, good guys and you have money, where's the fun? Where's the chaos?
mm,
You're not used to
yeah.
it. And so people will stay broke. People will stay in certain relationships. People stay in marriages all the time that they're not happy with because their nervous system is like, well, this is comfortable. It's chaotic, but chaos is our comfort zone. And so
Mm,
the work I do is helping people like figure out how to unidentify with and teach their nervous system that calm is the comfort zone, not chaos.
mm, I love it. Have you read, I read a book a couple months ago, Existential Kink.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a really
That
good.
was badass.
Yeah, it's like such a different way to look at this work. I think
Yeah,
people who kind of struggle with maybe affirmations or like, super, but I feel like real cynical people probably really like existential kink. Like anybody can read it for sure, but
yeah, yeah, I love that idea, what you're describing, just like, we don't ever do something without really deep reasons.
yeah, no, no, that's it. It's like
And
impossible for a human being to just do something for no reason.
yeah, and a lot of times we don't even know what the reasons are. And
Yeah.
and that's the work, like, we have to figure out, wait, why am I broke constantly, and why am I dating assholes constantly, and all. Oh, can you tell me about, I've I follow your stuff, and I've gotten to see you interact with, is it Broden?
Broden, yeah.
Broden. I
Yeah, his mom
love
wanted to name him Brandon or Brody, but didn't want to do the both, so she just named him Broden.
I love it. She got both. That's
Yeah.
cool. Um, I love just your vulnerability, sharing about your past relationships and now being in a relationship with Broden and the differences there. What and then uh, also knowing and learning that you did some really deep work in between those relationships. Can you kind of
Mhm.
can you talk about what you did to change your nervous system, to change your whole thing, to actually transition from someone who was, in these other toxic relationships, to now you're in this amazing relationship?
Yeah, there's never like one specific thing, right? It's always a lot of different things for sure. But I think it kind of goes back to what I was just sharing. If I were to put it in more of an umbrella, is I taught my nervous system that chaos wasn't safe. I grew up not in a chaotic household, but a chaotic relationship, essentially with my mom. And now we have a really great relationship, but there was definitely chaos and my parents were split and all these different things that I dealt with. I wasn't awful, but I learned from a very young age about like what a household is like. Especially like stuff with my stepdad and like just his moods kind of determined the energy of
Mm,
the house. And
yeah.
so I've always been like very vigilant and always making sure that like I'm not really like a people pleaser. It's like I don't see myself as a people pleaser, but very much as in like a someone out like my partner's mood affects mine. And so
Mm,
I constantly thought I just had to find someone that didn't trigger my moods, which that's helpful, to have to date someone that is a little bit more regulated, of course, but I realized that I had to feel okay with, like, being around other people and not controlling their moods. Like, I was gonna be
mm,
okay if I was okay. And so, it's funny that you asked that question too because we just started today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, we started yesterday. I started this new 6 group coaching mentorship called The Secure Self. And it's all about helping women romanticize their relationship with themselves so much that a partner, a friend, a job, a family member disrupting their lives or coming into their lives, positive or negative, it would be a challenge. And that they just feel like the main character in their life again. And so, like, I think one of the things I did a lot of work on my anxious attachment. I did a lot of work on like my communication and my ability to listen and not always need to be right. Like our motto very much is it's us against the problem, not us against each other. And I've always felt that way, but now having a partner who is 50-50 with me on that versus me being the only one that kind of feels that way, it's a lot easier. But I did a lot of work, but I think one of the biggest things was I got a divorce. And then when I got into my first like relationship after that divorce, it was like a 3-month situationship that like destroyed me. And then I kind of had to go through that. And then I think a little bit less than a year later, I got into another relationship that lasted another like 3 months and destroyed me again. And I was like, okay, I realized that I don't want to be with these people. I just wanted to have a relationship, and that's not okay. I need to want to be with an actual human being, like the individual, versus just want what a relationship is going to give me, which is like attention and validation and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, what am I looking for in this relationship? And how do I give that to myself first? Because I can't ask anybody else to give these things to me if I can't give them to myself. So I went on a 30-day journey inward where I was going to do like my daily tasks, which were just making sure I like took care of myself, went to the gym, meditated, like things that were important to me. And then I had weekly tasks where I did things that I wanted other people to do for me. So I took myself on out on a date every Wednesday. And this ended up it went from 30 days to 4 months. So every single Wednesday for 4 months, I took myself out on a date. Every Friday, I went on
Awesome.
a solo hike with myself. I bought myself flowers. I would talk to myself nicer. I would just treat myself, friend, family, partner, whatever it is. I was treating myself that way. And 4 months later, I met the partner I have now, and I know it's because I went on that journey inward, and that journey inward is what sparked me creating this group that I'm really excited about, and like helping other women figure out like how to do that, whether it's relationships with a partner or just I see people all the time who have friends, and I'm like, why are you friends with this person? Just because you've been friends with them for 14 years doesn't mean that you need to allow this person to continue to walk all over you and disrespect you. So it's kind of just helping people treat themselves, it's not even just like self-love, it's just like have those standards for yourself and for how you want to be treated. And like the tagline that I said for this program was like, become the woman that says these are my standards, take it or leave it, and not be afraid about what's going to happen if someone doesn't. Because if they don't, they're not your people. And if they do, win-win.
It seems so obvious when you put it that way, but when you're in the midst of it,
Yeah.
it's so freaking scary.
Yeah, for sure.
But I love the simplicity of it again. It's like I have everything I need to live a fucking amazing life.
Mhm.
And yet I was trained like no, I have nothing I need and everything I need is somewhere out there.
Yeah.
That was the whole premise of my religion. It seems like the whole premise of this society.
Mhm.
And, and I love that you're helping people realize that it's all right here.
Yeah. Yeah, finding that validation, that happiness, that all of it through yourself to be able to become the person that says like I I don't, and this is what I wanted is I didn't want to be in a relationship until someone could give me something that I couldn't give myself. That's when I
Mm.
knew it was real. That's why when I met my partner, and at the time, it's crazy that we're together and that this relationship even became a thing because when I met, it was just a little over a year ago, but at the time I was 34 and he was 25. And I was like, I do not need to date a 25-year-old. Like, what is this? And he, first few days of meeting him, because we met at a music festival, we were both in the same camp, and realized we lived 20 minutes from each other. It was a music festival in Arkansas. And I was like, this guy is more emotionally intelligent than any man I've ever met. But I told him from the beginning, and he was a recovering drug addict. He'd already been over a year sober. But I was like, 25 recovering addict, there's absolutely no way that I need to get myself in. So I told my best friend, she was like, what are you doing? Run. And I was like, I know you're gonna think I'm crazy. I'm not gonna do anything silly. I'm gonna take my time and I'm going to listen to myself. My intuition is telling me otherwise. And I told him because I had done this journey inward from the beginning. I was so like, these are my standards, take it or leave it. And he was like, I love that. He was like, I can't wait to step up to the plate to those things. And went, came up to the plate and hit a home run 10 million times and something I really just respect and love about him more than like, and I've interacted with a lot of people in my life, just from networking to being on social media to traveling for business and all of the different things. No one in my life I've ever met that is more open to feedback and changing. And like, you say, hey, this is something I'd like to be different. And within the next day, the next week, he is doing it differently and never does it differently again, or like goes
Wow.
back to the old ways again. And I think he's just so open to feedback. And I think we as
Mm,
human beings just can like, and this is what I'm learning from him because he can give me things that I can't give myself. Like I have been really defensive my entire life and like always wanting to be right. And that was definitely an issue I had in my marriage that I know was like, it wasn't that my ex was just like a piece of shit. Like we both had our issues and I just always wanted to be right and I was always really defensive. And he has taught me, and I had like already been learning that, but he's really taught me about like how much of a benefit there is to not being defensive and listening with open ears and not
mm,
trying to prove why there's no reason why you're giving me this feedback because here's why I'm actually right. He's just so good at that. And so he's been able to give me that plus so much more that I wasn't able to give myself. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this is the right person because he's giving me things that, I can't give myself.
mm. I love it. Um, One of the things that you talked about and that I've picked up in some of your other podcasts too is not um like coming to the relationship not to fix the other person, but to support them. You talked about that when you were talking about his addiction history, and I hear that playing in what you're talking about right now. And I came to my marriage absolutely as a fixer. Like, I'm here to fix you because it was way too fucking hard to fix me. And like it was that whole mirror thing. It was like, if I can point at you and point at all the bad stuff you're doing and try and fix you, then I feel like I'm doing something good, and I don't have to look at myself.
Exactly.
So how do you guys process that? How do you come as support to him and not fix, and likewise him to you?
So this is probably not that's like the last thing I need to work on. I'm always working on things, but I would say that is something that I have been practicing since I met him, especially because I have always been the fixer. I'm a Virgo. It's funny I don't want kids because I'm very like mothery. Like I'm always wanting to guide people and like it's hard when you do this for a living to not be like that. So it's a
Totally.
constant battle and I'm innately like that. And then this is my job is to do that. And so to be able to take my hat off when I'm just interacting with him and not, even though it's also hard because that's the thing that attracted me to him, or him to me, is he loved that
Yeah.
about me and like that's why he likes older women because they're just like, you're so much smarter than me. And I love that. And so, I think that's always something that I'm navigating, but like have learned that through being with him because he did something it's called Outward Bound. It's a kind of like a wilderness
Yeah.
retreat, like
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the kind where they steal you from your house and like put you in
Yes.
camp, like one that you choose to go to and pay to go to.
Heck yeah.
And he did that kind of as a rehab. Like his mom kind of gave him because she was the one helping him and he was going through his addiction, and she was like, you have a choice. You either go to rehab or you go to Outward Bound. And he was like, I'll go to Outward Bound. And I truly think he also went to Montessori school. And I think that helped him be who he is anyway. But he went to Outward Bound. And so much that he's taught me from what he's learned at Outward Bound, I think really has helped me. And I've learned that I had a therapist tell me once when I was really in my fixer stage, and I was like, it was kind of towards the end of my marriage, right before we got a divorce. And I would constantly talk about, like, well, like my issues was always like wanting to, because of what I do and being a life coach and always wanting to prove myself. My
Mm.
partner and I, like, I was going like this, and he was just okay with where he was, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't want to be with someone that was okay with that. I needed somebody that we don't have to be on the same path, but we got to be going up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was constantly trying to like, he would do something, it would be at work or at the house or whatever. And I would like try to do something to stop him from making mistakes. And
Mm,
my therapist was like, we were talking about this, and I was like, but if I don't say something, he's going to make a mistake. And she was like, then let him. How else is he going to learn? How did you learn? She was like, you're stopping him from being able to make mistakes. And when she
mm,
said that, like, I couldn't fix that in my marriage because it had just gone so long. There was no really turning back for us. But I wanted to adopt that, especially being with somebody who can give me a healthy side of the relationship as well. Something I really realize, and I like to talk about this often just in case the right person hears this. I'm never going to be one that's like, go get a divorce unless it's abusive and you're not safe. But I'll never convince someone to leave. But I will say, I'd say about 50% of people that work with me end up no longer in their relationship. And I never say anything about them not being in the relationship. It just naturally happens. But I think that, like, when you can be in a relationship and, like, look at the other person and ask yourself, like, if I'm going to try to shift all these things and change what they're doing and do all of this, like, do you really want to be with that person, or are you just kind of like in love with the potential that they have? And they always, like, whoever they is, but like, I've always heard, this thing I feel like that goes around, whether it's like a quote or a story or whatever, where it's like, you, oh God, I'm totally gonna butcher it. I don't remember. If it comes back to me, it'll come back to me, on purpose. And sorry to leave people hanging, but, like, I don't know. I think there's just something about, like, wanting to allow other people to make the mistakes, do the things that they're going to do. And for me, what I have to do when that happens is, and I still do it, believe me, like, especially him being younger. Like, in my mind, I'm like, and we're the exact same person, which makes it even harder. Like, he was literally put into my life to challenge me because I'm a life coach. He's younger than me. We're the same person, like, not like we like the same pizza toppings. It's so strange, some of the things, like, we both would like the same niche, like, movie from, like, 4th grade. Or, like, if he gets home from work and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I have a paper cut on my right pinky." Guess who got a paper cut on their right pinky earlier that day? So strange. And
crazy.
so, like, yeah, it's so weird. So all those things, and I can, like, watch it, and I'm like, I don't want you to make the same mistakes as me, but I didn't have someone to allow me to, like, avoid that mistake. And while in theory that sounds really great because I wouldn't have had made that mistake, but I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't made those mistakes. So I think the biggest thing for
Yeah.
is to remind myself when I want to say something is, like, I think what I try to just hold my tongue, but that can just still be really hard. So I'll always ask, like, do you want, like, advice, or do you just want me to listen? And
Mm,
most of the time, like, he does ask for advice, but a lot of times, like, he just wants me to listen. Or I've found different ways to kind of bring in the coaching aspect, but not in like a coachy way, of just the, excuse me, like, the avenue of being like asking questions. Like, if I with clients, like, the good coaches give advice, great coaches ask questions, and you can do both.
mm,
There's a difference between coaching and mentoring. But, like, for you to be able to ask questions to help someone arrive at the answer on their own, psychologically, they're actually, I don't know what the percentage is, but they're like 50% more likely to do whatever the thing was if they think that they thought of it on their own. Even if they're paying you
mm.
their coach, if someone thinks of an answer or, like, a way to do something, but you just ask the right questions to help them get there, they're much more likely to do it. And then they feel like they've done it. And so, but you're both working together. So I feel like that's something, it's just really good communication and practicing being present and slowing down and
Mm.
reminding myself, I don't, when I get nervous of, like, that voice in my head goes, "Well, wait, well, you don't wanna have him make those mistakes, like, you love him, you don't wanna see him go through pain." But if
Yeah.
so, yes, we could worry about that, but what about worrying about stopping him from learning a lesson that's really gonna teach him that? And he always reminds me of that. He's like, "Let me make my own mistakes." And so I'm like, "Okay, okay." So, yeah, it's not really like one dry thing, but I think those are kind of the things that we do to help navigate that.
Awesome. Yeah, as you're talking, it sounds like it's an art form, and I feel that in my relationship. It's like, because sometimes it is that she wants me to help her and coach her and give her my thing and my advice, and then sometimes, and it feels like most of the time I'm on exactly the wrong spectrum. Like, I give advice when she doesn't want it, and I won't give advice, and then she'll be like, "Why aren't you talking?" And I'm like, "I thought you didn't want me to talk."
Yeah. That's why that question of like, do you want me to give advice or do you want me to listen? Like just giving
Yeah.
someone the opportunity to share with you what they want. Cause like sometimes because he'll ask me that or I'll ask him that. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what I want right now. Like maybe both, you know? And I think we're always trying to, especially when we love someone, we're always trying to, like, solve their problems for them, and that's all we really care about, and so when you can give them the opportunity to choose what they want and have, like, autonomy in that, I feel, that is more helpful in the long run because of always bigger picture versus short-term comforts all day long, and I think that blends to that, you know?
Yeah. The other thing that comes to my mind that I recently learned about all this is, it's when I just give advice, it's actually pretty freaking arrogant to be like, "Hey, I know what you need." Even though I've been married to my wife for 16 years, the reality is she has, like, I will never know even a tiny percentage of her reality. She's a woman. She's grew up somewhere totally
Yeah,
all and so for me to be like, "Oh, just do this." It's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are, man? You have no idea what I'm experiencing."
yeah, and I think we can still be in a place of offering that advice, but I find that the best advice, the ones that will actually feel like it's serving a purpose versus just, like, being arrogant is and that's why I think, my relationship with my partner is so good is because we just, like, over communicate and talk about things all the time. Like, I think when you can talk through a situation or talk through a problem, whether that's your problem together or hers or yours, and then you navigate that, you've gained more insight, you've gained more information, and now you can offer advice once she feels heard and once you've actually talked through it with more information. Cause like there's been times even my partner, he would give me advice and I'm like, well, wait, what about this, 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 and this? And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, you didn't ask. And so like when you can talk through it and navigate it a bit more, then I feel heard. Your advice feels like it's less arrogant and makes more sense because you know the context of the story. And then we can work through this together. And then it becomes like our problem versus just like these separate entities that we're trying to navigate, you know?
Yeah, and that, I think the challenge with that, like my nervous system, my response to that right now is like, it's like, wait, to do that, I have to slow down.
Yeah.
Like, I have to stop. I have to think. I have to breathe and, like, actually ask questions. And, I wasn't trained to do that. I haven't trained myself to do that.
Yeah. Most
But
of us weren't.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think too something that I'm always it's just I feel like I came out of the womb with a coach brain, I swear. But like the thing I always or I would say with what you're saying about like, "Oh, I need to slow down," is what I would ask if we were working together. Because I always try to ask my clients, like, kind of almost follow-up questions that really help them solve the problem by not just asking the question related to what they just said, but kind of like a question underneath the question almost. And when you said that about like, "Oh, I realize that means I need to slow down," is to ask yourself, well, why aren't you slowing down in that moment? Like, what
Mm,
about it is difficult? And then that might give you some insight of like, well, I
yeah.
just don't like want to hear her struggle with the problem anymore. I want this to be solved. And
Yeah.
it's okay. Well, if you want it to be solved, then like, why do you need it to be solved so quickly? And then just keep asking why until you get a little bit deeper. And then you can solve the root of the problem versus just the surface level, which is like the whole what my coaching has always been from the very beginning is like, I want to help people with the root of the issue versus a band aid. on it, because there's so much stuff
Yeah.
that we can consume online and like AI and all this stuff. Like, I think, that's why I don't think like coaches will ever go out of like AI will ever put me out of a job, because there's just sometimes these underneath the surface, like experience based questions that like you need to be able to ask yourself, that like a coach can ask you to really help you figure out like, yeah, well, okay, well, I could solve that problem. But if you ask me that question, now I can solve it even deeper, and then keep asking questions until you get truly to the root of what it is. Then you're no longer going to want to do that behavior anymore because you've solved it at the root versus just
Mm,
like put a band-aid on the solution in this very moment.
yeah, dude, I had the privilege of getting to be coached by a guy who asked questions, and it was a life-changing experience. And I only had a couple sessions with him, but the patience, the slowness, the questions, it was like I felt like I was with a different kind of human being, and it was incredible.
Yeah, yeah, there's a book by John Maxwell. He's like the number one author in all of leadership. But he has a book. I like when I first started coaching, he's all I read, and I feel like that's why I am a good coach, is because of him. But he has a book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, and it's
Oh,
just so good. And I'm constantly having to remind myself of that all the time. Of like, I'll be in a session and I'm like, man, I've been talking too much. How can I ask a question? Like sometimes that's why the difference between like coaching and mentoring. Coaching is going to be like asking questions and digging a little bit deeper and doing all that. Mentoring is when you do say, okay, this is what I would do in this situation. So there's always a time and place for both, but like it should be like 80% coaching and like 20% mentoring, to really get the most out of it. And not everybody wants to be asked those questions, but everybody is going to get further when you are asked those questions versus like just getting advice, for sure.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking through my notes and just trying to see. I feel like we covered a lot of beautiful stuff here.
Hell yeah.
Um, Intuition, like you talk about intuition. I know for me, I prioritize intellectualism over intuition, and I'm learning.
Why?
Why did I prioritize intellectualism?
Oh, over intuition.
I think,
Outside of being a man.
yeah,
Just kidding.
yeah, there's definitely that. Yeah, I think a big part of it is just it is our patriarchal system, like men, and it's way less vulnerable. If I
Yeah.
can just be like, well, this study says this, rather than, dude, I'm fucking sad and I'm scared and it was a way for me to hide. And yet, as I'm starting to step more into my intuition, it's like it feels like it's that thing we were talking about. It's like a birthing. It's unbelievably painful, but it's also unbelievably pleasurable at the same time.
Mhm.
It's wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in intuition when you haven't used that. Like from ages, I think it's like 8 or 0 to 8, we are literally developing like our ability to be intuitive. And so if you have a parent who either questions everything that you do or makes you feel bad about yourself, or is like a helicopter parent and is always like you're learning how to wash the dishes and they're like, "Ah, just move out of the way, let me do it." Like you were actually like disrupt your ability to have your like develop your intuition. And so some people have to like redevelop that. And I think that when you don't have that and you've been so logical and it's so weird because like I am like right in the middle of it all, like in everything. I'm like science and woo. I'm very logical and analytical, but I'm also very like I'm left and right brain like so hardcore. And I think that when you've been so analytical and you've been focused on like logic and this is what this is and science and all this, the idea of trusting your intuition, it's so interesting because once you start to tune into it, you're like, well, this doesn't seem like it should be right, but I feel like it is. And it's like so uncertain, even though intuition is so certain. because it's just something that your nervous system and everything internally is not used to. And it's just like a muscle. The more you do it and you have the proof that your
Mm,
intuition is never wrong, ever.
mm,
Or ever, ever. And people are always like, well, how do I know the difference between my intuition and my anxiety? It's like intuition is quiet and calm. Anxiety is loud and urgent. It's right now. It needs to be solved right now. Your intuition will never make you feel that way. It's going to let you do your own thing. It's going to be calm. It's going to be quiet. But anxiety is going to be like, we have to figure this out right now. This is the thing. And it's repetitive. Intuition is kind of just like, this is it. I don't need to keep repeating this. This is just what it is. And anxiety is just like, let me rethink this in like 17 different ways. So that
mm.
uncertainty like makes a lot of sense.
I love that. I love reverse engineering it and just kind of recognizing and defining, okay. Yeah, because that is a question that I have, and that is a fear that I have in trusting my intuition. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, how much of what I'm feeling is actually from my childhood trauma and the bullshit of all the stuff. And yeah, so that helps to recognize it's slow, steady, easy, gentle, and the anxiety and the bullshit and all that stuff is stressful.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Do you have uh, anything else you want to throw out there before we kind of tie up with my little ending stuff?
Um, I feel like there's always that, like, last words, and I always try to change it up. But um I think what's been I like to share kind of what's been my learning lessons versus like here's everything I know about, it's like what I've been navigating myself is my ability to trust that the worst possible scenario is not going to happen. This is something that I realized recently, not that I didn't know this before, but my current block that I'm navigating is like because of being let down by the adults in my life growing up and from having different things happen over the course of my life. My nervous system and my brain and my thoughts love to go when something good happens. I sign a client, I get an opportunity, I make money, whatever, my health is good. There's this voice in the back of my head that's like waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, well, what if this worst case scenario happens? And then I'll end up manifesting it because that's the energy that I'm putting out. So like I'll get an opportunity and then they'll like email me back and be like, "Oh, sorry, like, this can't happen." Doesn't happen all the time, but like can happen when I'm not doing the work that I need to. And so just posted a video like a few days ago where I talked about how I had a conversation with my inner child and asked her like, "Okay, why every time something good happens, we are always thinking worst case scenario?" It's like you can't allow the good to just keep coming. You
Mm,
expect that something bad's gonna happen, like almost like I believe that I'm unlucky. I've called myself accident prone a lot of my life, but I've realized, a lot of the work that I've done that, especially through Joe Dispenza, is that like that's just been my affirmation. If I always tell myself I'm accident prone and that I always hurt myself before I have a big event, or if something can go, I would say like I'm Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. But I learned recently that there's something called Ephraim's Law, which is literally just Murphy spelled backwards. Ephraim's Law says that if something can go right, it will. And so
mm,
I like had this conversation with my inner child of like, okay, what's the reason why whenever something good happens, it's like you're creating these thoughts and these images of what if this worst case scenario happens? And it was and she said because she was afraid that of getting her hopes up, that if she thought that good could keep coming because we've been let down, what if it keeps happening? And I was like, I understand that. That's really scary to like, just assume that that's going to happen because it has happened in the past. But what about all the times where the best possible situation happened, where you thought everything was going to go wrong and it didn't? Why are we not focusing on those? And what if, we put more attention on that, because we could focus on the negative happening, but we know that that's only going to manifest more of what we don't want. If we focus on the best possible situation, being let down, assuming the best thing is going to happen is much better than good things happening and then us manifesting negative things because
Mm.
everything's negative. So if we have to choose between the two, let's go with the first one because that's going to be so much easier. And then I navigated it through what do you need from me in that moment when you're feeling that way? And that was just some nervous system regulation for my inner child. She always just wants to dance and put on music and all of that. So I was like, okay, next time we feel worst case scenario is going to happen, what are we going to do? We're not going to think our way out of it. We're going to dance. We're going to move. And that's essentially what I've been doing. So hopefully that will land with someone who might need to hear it.
Mm. Yeah, it lands with me.
Hell yeah.
It's beautiful. It's awesome. I love it. Coming to the end, I always like to ask, do you have a resource that you would recommend, a hero that you love and just want to shout out to, and then just where can people find and connect with you?
Um, your resource is your body. Your body. It's the best resource on the planet. And for some people, I say that a little bit with an asterisk next to it because I totally understand that some people have some complex PTSD and some trauma that like getting into their body feels absolutely terrifying. And that if you're in that boat, then, obviously doing some therapy with like some EMDR or some CBT, like some kind of other therapy with someone who specializes in that can help you through that. But if you're not in that place, your body is the answer to everything. And that's why, I love what I do because I don't like to teach nervous system regulation from this like really complex lens where we talk about, polyvagal theory and dorsal, this and that. Like I understand that that is where it comes from, and I think for some people they want to know that, but I think like your body is just a tool that you can use to navigate really anything. If you're struggling to focus at work, like for my ADHD people, like they think just powering through or having another cup of coffee is going to help, but what if instead you stood up from your desk for 3 minutes and regulated your nervous system by doing that body tense or by screaming into a pillow or dance around your house naked, like whatever works, you're going to be able to focus so much easier if you do that. So body's
Mm.
a total resource. Hero, I would just say lately because I've been learning from him for over a year now, but still very obsessed with him, Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza is like, I feel like he's taking me up into a whole new place of like the work that I've been doing. Cause he even talks about like no matter what your childhood trauma is, like if you identify with that, then it's gonna keep you in the same place, not disregarding what you've been through, but through meditation and the stuff that a lot of his stuff is through meditation, you can teach your body a new reality. When you're thinking about your trauma, you're staying in the past. And when you're thinking about, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Like you're thinking about the future and the present moment is the only moment. And so his book, Becoming Supernatural, his book, You Are the Placebo. I'm actually going on a 7-day retreat here in Colorado starting Sunday. And it's from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. It is like meditations all day long. It's super intense. And I've never been to anything like it. I'm really, really excited. So I'm excited to go to that. And then where to find me, I'm just the Tough Love Coach, spelled exactly the way it sounds, on Instagram, on TikTok. I feel like I mainly am on Instagram. I post on TikTok, but like, not anything too much over there. I have a podcast called Burn It Down. I technically have a YouTube channel that I like randomly post on occasionally called the Reinvention Room, which you can check out if you'd like. But Instagram is mainly where I'm at, where, I share all my stuff. But I will share just because I just launched it today. I closed my Secure Self group. So if you heard me talk about any of this, you're like, I want to work with you. You can always work with me one-on-one if I have spots open. Just shoot me a DM. The Secure Self, the 6-week group coaching program, this is the first time I'm running it. And I know I'm going to want to run it again. I just have a really good feeling about it. And so there most likely will be another round probably in the summer. So if you're like, oh, I want to do this work, that will be then. But I am actually going, think I mentioned it earlier, I'm going on an ayahuasca retreat in Colombia from May 15th to the 25th. And what I'm doing is, because I know it's so important for the integration part of it, I am giving away a 3-month one-on-one coaching program to 3 people that go with me. All you have to do is you pay for the retreat. You get to coach with me for free if you decide to go. So You can go by yourself, you can come with a partner. Honestly, Fred and Carla, who put together this, they're a part of Towson. They encourage people to come together as a couple. They say it's like the most transformative, process ever. But if you do go through that, you do have to go through me. So, in case somebody listens to this in that time and they want to be a part of it, I don't know if the spots will be available, but I'm really excited for that. So, that's my spiel.
Wow. Badass.
Thanks.
It's a lot of good, beautiful stuff. I am so grateful to you for being here, for just opening your heart, and I feel the love, I feel the energy, and I can't wait to see what you have next. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
then I'm also going to just thank myself for my vulnerability, the gift that I'm bringing, and just celebrate both of us and our these beautiful journeys that we're on, these beautiful lives that we get to embody. And I have a little closing mantra that I like to do. Oh, you know what? I also just want to thank anyone who's listening and just send my love out to them. Um, you're beautiful, you're powerful, you are innately valuable. I'm so glad to be on this earth with you. In perfect alignment with reality, may I continue to remember and reclaim my wholeness because I am infinitely and inherently valuable, and the world is longing to witness the beauty of one whole man.
Hell yeah. I love that.